The morning sun cast long shadows across the New Busan colony gardens as Minho chased a bright blue butterfly between the tomato plants. At 12 years old, he was the oldest of his group and felt responsible for keeping the others safe during their daily playtime in the community gardens. Jinwoo followed close behind him, kicking at small rocks and making explosion sounds with his mouth as if the rocks were tiny bombs hitting alien spaceships. The 11-year-old boy had an active imagination and loved stories about space battles and brave heroes fighting against impossible odds. Yuna sat cross-legged near the fountain, picking wildflowers and weaving them into a crown while humming an old Korean lullaby her guardian Dr. Somin had taught her. The 10-year-old girl had delicate features and moved with careful precision as she selected each flower for its perfect color and shape. Her dark eyes sparkled with intelligence as she worked, and occasionally she would glance up to check on her younger companion Hana, who was 9 years old and currently hanging upside down from the low branches of an apple tree. The colony of New Busan had been their home for 3 years now, since their original families had been lost in a transport accident during the early days of human expansion into this sector of space. The 4 children had been placed under the care of 4 adult guardians who worked various jobs around the settlement. Captain Taehyun managed colony security and defense systems, while Dr. Soman ran the medical facility and research lab. Engineer Kyungho maintained all the technical systems that kept their small world running smoothly, and pilot Nari handled all incoming and outgoing transport flights between New Busan and other human settlements. Life on New Busan was peaceful and predictable, which made the events of that morning all the more shocking when they began to unfold. Minho was reaching for the butterfly when a strange shadow passed over the gardens, blocking out the warm sunlight for several seconds. He looked up expecting to see clouds, but instead saw something that made his blood turn cold. Massive, dark shapes were descending through the atmosphere toward their colony, and they were definitely not human ships. The vessels were enormous and angular with sharp edges that seemed to cut through the sky itself. They moved with purpose and coordination like a pack of predators surrounding their prey. Minho counted at least 6 of the alien ships, and more were still emerging from the upper atmosphere where they had apparently been waiting in stealth mode. The boy grabbed Jinwoo by the shoulder and pointed upward, causing his friend to stop mid-kick and stare in amazement and growing fear. Yuna dropped her flower crown and stood up quickly, brushing dirt from her clothes as she tried to process what she was seeing. Her mind worked fast, and she realized immediately that this was not a friendly visit or accidental encounter. The ships were positioned in a tactical formation designed to prevent escape, and their weapon systems were clearly visible as they powered up with an ominous blue glow. Hana flipped herself right side up on the tree branch and climbed down with surprising speed for someone so young. The colony alarm system suddenly burst to life with a piercing wail that echoed across the settlement, warning all residents to seek immediate shelter. Emergency broadcasts began playing from speakers mounted on poles throughout the community, instructing everyone to follow evacuation protocols and move to designated safe zones. The children had practiced these drills many times, but this was clearly not a practice session. Captain Taehyun's voice came over the communication system, calm but urgent as he coordinated the colony defense response. The man had always seemed tough and capable to the children, but now there was something different in his tone, something that suggested he knew exactly what kind of threat they were facing. Dr. Samin's voice joined the broadcast moments later, directing medical personnel to prepare emergency stations, while engineer Kyungho reported that he was attempting to strengthen the colony shields. The alien ships began their attack with surgical precision, targeting specific buildings and infrastructure, rather than simply destroying everything in sight. Bright energy beams lanced down from the vessels, striking the communication array, the power distribution center, and the main landing pad where pilot Nari kept her ship ready for emergency departures. The attackers clearly knew exactly what they were doing and had studied the colony layout in advance. Minho grabbed Yuna's hand and shouted for Jinwoo and Hana to follow him toward the nearest shelter building. The children ran as fast as they could while explosions erupted around them and alien fighters screamed overhead, firing at anything that moved. The peaceful gardens were transformed into a battlefield in a matter of minutes, as automated defense turrets emerged from hidden positions and began firing back at the invading forces. The 4 guardians appeared from different directions, converging on the children's location with weapons and emergency equipment. Captain Taehyun carried a military-grade rifle and wore tactical armor that the children had never seen before. Dr. Salman had a medical kit and a sidearm, while Engineer Kyung-ho brought some kind of electronic device that was beeping frantically. Pilot Nari arrived last, sprinting toward them while speaking rapidly into a handheld communicator. "The children are the primary target," Captain Taehyun announced to the others as they formed a protective circle around Minho, Jinwoo, Yuna, and Hana. This statement confused and terrified the children, because they could not understand why anyone would specifically want to capture them. They were just ordinary kids living on a small farming colony that had no strategic value or significant resources. The battle intensified as more alien troops landed and began advancing through the settlement using strange floating platforms and energy shields. The human defenders fought bravely, but they were clearly outnumbered and outgunned by technology that was far more advanced than anything in their arsenal. Each of the 4 guardians demonstrated combat skills that surprised the children, who had never imagined their caretakers possessed such training and experience. Dr. Sumin moved with deadly precision as she took down alien soldiers with carefully aimed shots while simultaneously tending to wounded colonists. Engineer Kyung-ho activated some kind of jamming device that disrupted the alien communications and caused several of their flying vehicles to crash. Pilot Nari used her intimate knowledge of the colony layout to guide defenders through hidden passages and coordinate ambush attacks. Captain Taehyun fought like a man possessed, driving back wave after wave of alien troops while issuing tactical commands to the other defenders. The children watched in amazement as their normally calm and gentle guardian transformed into a deadly warrior who seemed to anticipate every enemy move. His accuracy with weapons was incredible, and he moved through the battle zone like he had been doing this his entire life. Despite their fierce resistance, the human defenders were gradually overwhelmed by the sheer numbers and superior technology of the alien force. The enemy commander appeared to be a tall figure in elaborate armor, who directed the attack from the safety of his command ship, while specialized capture teams moved toward the children's location. These troops carried non-lethal weapons designed to subdue rather than kill their targets. The end came suddenly when a powerful energy blast disabled the colony's main defense grid, leaving the remaining defenders exposed and vulnerable. Captain Taehyun made the difficult decision to surrender, rather than risk the children being hurt in a final desperate battle. He ordered the other guardians to lay down their weapons, and the 4 adults were immediately stunned by alien paralysis beams. As the alien soldiers approached with containment devices, the children huddled together, knowing that their peaceful life on New Busan was over forever. They did not yet understand who had taken them or why, but they could sense that this was only the beginning of a much larger and more dangerous adventure than anything they had ever imagined. The transport ship that carried the 4 children away from New Busan was unlike anything they had ever seen before. The walls seemed to be made of living metal that shifted and flowed with patterns of light, while strange alien symbols appeared and disappeared along the surfaces. Minho pressed his face against the transparent viewing panel, watching their home colony shrink to a tiny dot, before vanishing completely among the stars. Beside him, Jinwoo tried to understand the alien control panels by studying the symbols and noting how they changed when crew members interacted with them. Yuna sat quietly in her assigned seat, observing everything around her with careful attention to detail. She noticed how the alien crew members moved with perfect coordination, and how they communicated using both spoken words and hand gestures that seemed to carry specific meanings. The girl had always been good at learning languages, and she was already beginning to recognize patterns in their captor's speech. Hana appeared to be sleeping, but she was actually listening to every conversation and storing the information in her remarkable memory. The journey to their destination took several days, during which the children were treated well but kept under constant supervision. They were given food that was surprisingly similar to human cuisine in quarters that were comfortable, though clearly designed to prevent escape. The alien guards seemed more curious about them than hostile, and often stopped to stare at the young humans as if they had never seen anything quite like them before. Emperor Valdris appeared on a communication screen during their second day of travel, introducing himself as their new protector and explaining that they had been chosen for a great honor. The massive alien ruler stood over 8 feet tall with skin that shifted between deep purple and blue depending on the lighting. His eyes were completely black and seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, while his voice carried undertones that made the children feel uneasy. "You are fortunate young humans," the Emperor declared, with what might have been intended as a smile, though it looked more frightening than reassuring. "Your species shows great potential, and you four will be the first to realize that potential under proper guidance. You will be educated and trained to become something far greater than your primitive origins would normally allow." The children exchanged worried glances as they listened to this speech, not understanding what the Emperor meant by proper guidance, or why he considered humans to be primitive. From their perspective, humanity had achieved remarkable things, including faster-than-light travel and successful colonization of multiple worlds. They wondered what this alien ruler knew about humans that they themselves did not know. When they finally arrived at their destination, the children gasped in amazement at the sight before them. The capital world of Centaura Prime was a massive planet covered in gleaming cities that stretched from horizon to horizon. Enormous towers reached toward the sky while flying vehicles moved between them in organized streams of traffic. The Emperor's palace dominated the largest city, rising like a mountain of crystal and metal into the upper atmosphere. The palace itself was a marvel of alien architecture, with sections that seemed to defy gravity floating in mid-air connected by bridges of pure energy. Gardens filled with exotic plants from dozens of worlds created splashes of color against the gleaming surfaces, while waterfalls cascaded down the sides of towers before disappearing into mist. The children had never imagined that anything so beautiful and impossible could exist. Their quarters within the palace were luxurious, beyond anything they had experienced even on the comfortable colony world they called home. Each child was given a private room connected to a common area, where they could spend time together under the watchful eyes of their guards. The rooms contained soft furniture, comfortable beds, and viewing screens that could display entertainment from across the galaxy. Despite the luxury of their surroundings, the children quickly realized they were prisoners in a very sophisticated cage. The doors would not open for them, and the windows were made of material that could not be broken no matter how hard they tried. Guards were always present, though they tried to remain unobtrusive, and the children's movements were carefully monitored and controlled. Their education began immediately, with alien tutors arriving to teach them about galactic history, science, and culture. The children learned that the galaxy contained thousands of intelligent species and that Emperor Valdris ruled an empire spanning hundreds of worlds. They discovered that humans were considered newcomers to galactic civilization, and that most other species viewed them as curious, but ultimately insignificant. The tutors seemed genuinely impressed by how quickly the children learned new concepts and languages. Minho showed particular aptitude for strategy and tactical thinking, while Jinwoo demonstrated an intuitive understanding of alien technology. Yuna excelled at communication and diplomacy, while Hana proved to have an incredible memory for details and patterns. The tutors reported their progress to the Emperor, who expressed satisfaction with their development. Combat training was introduced during their second week at the palace, with alien instructors teaching them various fighting techniques and weapons handling. The children were told this was necessary for their own protection and future roles, but they suspected there were other reasons. The training was intense but not cruel, and their instructors seemed genuinely interested in developing their potential, rather than simply conditioning them to follow orders. During their lessons and training sessions, the children overheard many conversations between guards, tutors, and palace staff. They learned that Emperor Valdris was preparing for some kind of major conflict, though the details remained unclear. References were made to ancient threats returning and the need to unite the galaxy under strong leadership. The children began to understand that they were being groomed to play some role in these future events. Minho discovered that he could access certain palace information systems by observing how the staff interacted with control panels and memorizing the sequence of commands. His growing understanding of alien technology allowed him to learn about the palace security systems and communication networks. He shared this information with the others, who began planning ways to use it to their advantage. Jinwoo focused his attention on understanding the alien weapons and defensive systems that protected the palace. He noticed that many of the technologies seemed overly complex for their intended purposes, and wondered if simpler human approaches might actually be more effective. The boy began thinking about ways to turn the aliens' technological superiority against them. Yuna made friends with some of the younger palace staff members who were curious about human culture and customs. Through these relationships, she learned about political tensions within the empire and growing fears about Emperor Valdris's increasingly aggressive policies. Many of the staff members seemed to respect the emperor, but questioned his methods and worried about the future. Hana used her exceptional memory to create detailed mental maps of the palace layout and daily routines of guards and staff. She noticed patterns in their schedules and identified times when security might be reduced or when certain areas would be less heavily monitored. The girl also began to recognize which staff members might be sympathetic to their situation. As weeks passed, the children continued their education and training, while secretly gathering information and making preparations for an eventual escape attempt. They had no way of knowing whether their guardians from New Busan were still alive, or if anyone was looking for them. But they refused to give up hope. The 4 young humans were determined to find a way home no matter how long it might take. One evening, while pretending to sleep, Jinwoo overheard a conversation between 2 guards that made his blood run cold. The guards were discussing the attack on New Busan and mentioned that the 4 human defenders had fought with skills that surprised everyone. One guard referred to them as Terran ghosts, though neither guard seemed to understand what that term actually meant. This information gave Jinwoo hope that their guardians might still be alive and perhaps even looking for them. The children realized they needed to be patient and continue learning everything they could about their captors and their situation. They were far from home in the heart of a vast alien empire, but they were not helpless. Each day brought new knowledge and new opportunities to prepare for whatever challenges lay ahead. The 4 young humans were determined to prove that Emperor Valdris had made a serious mistake when he decided to capture them. Captain Taehyun regained consciousness in the ruins of the New Busan medical facility, 3 hours after the alien attack had ended. His body ached from the paralysis beam that had knocked him unconscious, but his mind was crystal clear and focused on a single objective: finding and rescuing the 4 children who had been taken from his protection. The man pushed himself up from the debris-covered floor and activated a hidden communication device that had been concealed in his tactical vest. The response came immediately, as 3 other signals activated across the devastated colony, confirming that Dr. Soman, Engineer Kyung-ho, and Pilot Nari had also survived the attack. The 4 guardians had been carefully positioned during the battle to increase their chances of survival in case their primary defense failed. Each of them carried emergency equipment and had backup plans that the alien attackers could never have anticipated. Within 30 minutes, the 4 guardians met at a concealed bunker that had been built beneath the colony's main supply depot. The underground facility contained weapons technology and communication equipment that were far more advanced than anything the aliens had seen during their attack on the surface. Captain Taehyun began activating systems while the others checked their equipment and prepared for what they all knew would be an extremely dangerous mission. "The children are alive and being transported to Centaura Prime," Dr. Soman reported, as she accessed intelligence data through a secure network connection. "Emperor Valdris has taken them personally, which means he considers them valuable enough to keep safe for now. We have perhaps 2 weeks before they reach the capital system." Engineer Kyung-ho was already working on a device that would allow them to track the alien transport ship across interstellar distances. His fingers moved quickly over the control interface as he fine-tuned sensors that could detect the unique energy signature of Valdris's personal fleet. The tracking system would give them the information they needed to plan their rescue mission. Pilot Nari was making preparations for their own departure from New Busan, using a ship that had been hidden in a camouflaged hangar several kilometers from the main settlement. The vessel appeared to be a standard civilian transport, but it had been modified with military-grade engines, weapons, and stealth technology. She would need several hours to complete the pre-flight checks and bring all systems online. As they worked, Captain Taehyun began explaining details about their true identities that the children had never known. The 4 of them were not simply colonial guardians assigned to watch over orphaned children. They were members of an elite military unit, known as Terran Ghost Specialists in deep cover operations and asymmetric warfare against technologically superior enemies. Our mission was to remain hidden and gather intelligence about alien civilizations, while protecting the children who represented the future of human expansion, Captain Taehyun explained. The colony was never just a farming settlement. It was a forward observation post designed to monitor this sector of space and identify potential threats to humanity. Dr. So-min had credentials as a medical doctor, but her real training was in psychological warfare and intelligence analysis. She had spent years studying alien behavior patterns and developing methods to manipulate their decision-making processes. Her knowledge of various species would be essential for infiltrating Valdris's empire and turning his own people against him. Engineer Kyung-ho possessed technical skills that went far beyond simple maintenance and repair work. He was an expert in alien technology systems and could modify captured equipment to serve human purposes. His ability to understand and sabotage complex networks would allow them to strike at the Emperor's infrastructure from within. Pilot Nari was more than just a transport operator. She was a combat veteran with experience flying everything from single-seat fighters to massive battlecruisers. Her skills would be crucial for getting them into and out of heavily defended alien space while avoiding detection by superior numbers of enemy vessels. The four Guardians spent the next several hours activating a network of human operatives that had been secretly positioned throughout the galaxy over the past decade. These agents had infiltrated alien governments, military organizations, and commercial enterprises while maintaining their cover identities. The network included scientists, diplomats, traders, and even entertainers who could gather information and provide assistance when needed. Messages went out through encrypted channels to dozens of human agents across multiple star systems. Each operative received specific instructions based on their location and capabilities. Some were tasked with gathering intelligence about Valdris's military strength and deployment patterns. Others were ordered to identify potential weaknesses in the Empire's political structure that could be exploited. The response from the network was immediate and encouraging. Human agents reported from every corner of Valdris's empire, providing detailed information about troop movements, supply lines, communication networks, and internal conflicts. The aliens had never suspected that humans were already present throughout their territory, gathering intelligence and preparing for exactly this kind of situation. Captain Tae-hyun began planning a series of coordinated strikes designed to weaken the Empire while creating confusion and fear among Valdris's forces. The attacks would need to be precise and devastating enough to make the Emperor question his assumptions about human capabilities. Each strike would bring them closer to their ultimate goal of reaching Centaura Prime and rescuing the children. The first target was a major military supply depot on the edge of the Empire, where weapons and equipment were stored before being distributed to frontline forces. A human agent working as a logistics coordinator provided detailed information about security protocols and shift schedules. The facility would be hit by what would appear to be an internal sabotage operation. Engineer Kyung-ho remotely activated devices that had been placed months earlier by the undercover agent. The explosions that followed destroyed millions of credits worth of military equipment, while making it appear that disloyal elements within the alien military were responsible. This would force Valdris to divert resources toward investigating his own people instead of pursuing external threats. The second strike targeted a communication relay station that coordinated fleet movements across 3 star systems. Dr. So-min used her psychological warfare expertise to create false messages that would be intercepted by alien intelligence services. The messages suggested that several alien species were planning to rebel against Valdris's rule, and that coordinated uprisings were being organized. Pilot Nari led a team of human operatives in hijacking an alien transport convoy, carrying sensitive diplomatic communications. The stolen messages revealed details about secret negotiations between Valdris and potential allies who were considering joining his empire. When these communications were leaked to rival alien factions, it created suspicion and mistrust that disrupted several important political relationships. The effects of these operations began to ripple through Valdris's empire within days of their execution. Military commanders started questioning the loyalty of their subordinates, while political leaders wondered if their private communications were secure. The Emperor himself became increasingly paranoid as reports reached him of sabotage, mysterious accidents, and possible treachery within his own ranks. What made these attacks particularly effective was that they followed patterns that seemed random to alien observers, but were actually carefully coordinated to achieve maximum psychological impact. Each operation was designed to create fear, uncertainty, and confusion, while avoiding direct confrontation with superior alien military forces. The attacks suggested that humans possessed capabilities that Valdris had never anticipated. As news of the mysterious incident spread throughout the Empire, other alien species began to reconsider their relationships with Valdris's government. Some worlds that had been considering joining the Empire decided to maintain their independence, while others began making secret preparations to defend themselves if necessary. The Emperor's vision of galactic unity under his leadership was beginning to crumble. Captain Taehyun monitored the situation carefully as he and his team made their way toward the core systems of the Empire. Their modified ship used stealth technology and false identification codes provided by human agents to avoid detection while traveling through heavily patrolled space. Each day brought them closer to their destination and to the 4 children who were depending on them for rescue. The Guardians knew that their actions had consequences beyond simply rescuing Minho, Jinwoo, Yuna, and Hana. They were demonstrating to the galaxy that humans were not the primitive newcomers that most alien species believed them to be. The 4 children had become symbols of humanity's potential, and their rescue would send a clear message that humans would go to any lengths to protect their own people. The children had been living in Emperor Valdris's palace for 2 months when Jinwoo made a discovery that changed everything they thought they knew about their situation. While practicing with the alien computer systems during his technology lessons, the 11-year-old boy managed to access restricted files that contained detailed information about their guardians' true identities. What he found made his hands shake as he read through classified documents that painted a very different picture of the adults who had raised them. Captain Taehyun was not simply a colony security officer, as they had always believed. According to the files, he was a former member of an elite military unit called the Terran Ghost Division Specialists in psychological warfare and deep infiltration missions against technologically superior enemies. His service record included operations on dozens of worlds where human interests had been threatened by hostile alien forces. Dr. Samin's background was equally shocking. She held advanced degrees in xenopsychology and had spent years studying alien behavior patterns to develop methods for manipulating their decision-making processes. Her medical credentials were real, but they served as cover for her true role as a psychological warfare specialist, capable of turning entire populations against their own governments. Engineer Kyung-ho was described as a master of technological sabotage with expertise in alien computer systems, weapons technology, and infrastructure networks. His ability to understand and modify captured alien equipment had made him invaluable during covert operations where human forces were outnumbered and outgunned by superior technology. Pilot Nari's file revealed combat experience that spanned multiple star systems and included successful missions against some of the galaxy's most dangerous criminal organizations and hostile governments. She was qualified to fly anything from single-seat fighters to massive battlecruisers, and had earned commendations for actions that remained classified even in these secret documents. Jinwoo carefully copied the information and shared it with the other children during one of their supervised recreation periods. Minho felt a mixture of pride and fear as he learned about their guardians' capabilities, while Yuna wondered why such dangerous people had been assigned to care for ordinary children on a peaceful farming colony. Hana processed the information with her usual careful attention to detail, and began to understand implications that the others had not yet considered. The revelation about their guardians' true identities came at the same time that disturbing news was reaching the palace from across Valdris's empire. Reports of sabotage, mysterious accidents, and internal conflicts were arriving daily as the Emperor's forces struggled to maintain control over their vast territory. The incidents seemed random, but they were causing significant damage to military, infrastructure, and political relationships. Emperor Valdris himself was becoming increasingly paranoid as he tried to understand what was happening to his carefully constructed empire. The tall alien ruler spent hours studying reports and interrogating his advisors, while searching for explanations that would make sense of the chaos spreading through his domain. His normally calm demeanor was replaced by agitation and suspicion that affected everyone around him. The children observed these changes with growing interest as they continued their education and training under the watchful eyes of their alien tutors and guards. They noticed that security measures throughout the palace were being increased and that staff members seemed nervous and distracted. Conversations between guards and servants often focused on rumors about mysterious human agents operating throughout the galaxy. During one of their tactical training sessions, Minho overheard two alien instructors discussing the recent incidents in worried tones. The instructors mentioned that the attacks showed a level of coordination and expertise that suggested highly trained military specialists were involved. One instructor wondered aloud whether the humans might possess capabilities that had been seriously underestimated by Imperial intelligence services. This conversation gave Minho a new perspective on their situation, and he began to suspect that the recent troubles plaguing Valdris's empire might be connected to their own capture. If their guardians were truly the elite operatives described in the classified files, then it was possible that Captain Tae-hyun and the others were still alive and actively working to rescue them. Yuna used her growing proficiency in alien languages to eavesdrop on conversations between palace staff members who thought she could not understand their words. She learned that fear was spreading through the empire, as military commanders questioned the loyalty of their subordinates and political leaders worried about the security of their communications. The carefully maintained unity of Valdris's rule was beginning to fracture under pressure. The girl also discovered that Emperor Valdris had been building his empire in preparation for a threat that few people understood completely. References were made to something called the Devourer's ancient beings who had once ruled the galaxy before disappearing into the void between stars. According to whispered conversations, these entities were expected to return, and only a unified galactic empire would have the strength to resist them. Hana's exceptional memory allowed her to piece together fragments of information from dozens of different sources, creating a comprehensive picture of the political and military situation. She realized that their capture had set in motion a chain of events that was threatening to destroy everything Valdris had worked to achieve. The Emperor's attempt to gain human soldiers had instead awakened something far more dangerous. The children began to understand that they were not simply prisoners being educated for some unknown purpose. They were the catalyst for a conflict that could reshape the entire galaxy, and their guardians were apparently winning despite being vastly outnumbered and outgunned by alien forces. This knowledge gave them hope, but also filled them with responsibility for consequences they had never intended. As weeks passed, the situation throughout the empire continued to deteriorate with increasing reports of sabotage, rebellion, and internal conflicts. Several worlds that had previously been loyal to Valdris began declaring independence or forming alliances with his enemies. The Emperor's vision of galactic unity was crumbling as fear and suspicion spread through every level of his government. Emperor Valdris made a decision that surprised everyone, including his closest advisors. He announced that he would personally interrogate the human children to learn more about their species' capabilities and intentions. The Emperor believed that these young prisoners might hold the key to understanding how humans had managed to infiltrate and destabilize his empire so effectively. The interrogation took place in the Emperor's private chambers with only a few trusted guards present. Valdris towered over the four children as he demanded answers about human military capabilities and the identities of the agents who were causing so much trouble throughout his territory. His black eyes seemed to absorb light as he studied their faces, searching for signs of deception or hidden knowledge. Minho spoke for the group, telling the Emperor that they were just ordinary children who knew nothing about military operations or covert agents. He explained that their guardians had always seemed like normal adults who worked regular jobs on their colony world. The boy's voice remained steady despite his fear, as he insisted that humans were not the threat that Valdris seemed to believe them to be. The Emperor was not convinced by their protests of innocence, and he began describing some of the incidents that had occurred throughout his empire. He spoke of supply depots destroyed by internal sabotage, communication networks compromised by false messages, and military convoys hijacked by unknown forces. The precision and coordination of these attacks suggested involvement by highly trained specialists with intimate knowledge of alien systems. Yuna surprised everyone by speaking up in fluent Centauran, which she had learned during her time in the palace. She told the Emperor that humans were naturally good at adaptation and cooperation, but that these same qualities could make them dangerous enemies when threatened. The girl suggested that perhaps the Emperor's own actions in attacking peaceful colonies might have provoked responses he had not anticipated. Emperor Valdris studied the young girl with new interest as he considered her words. He had always assumed that human children would be easily controlled and molded to serve his purposes, but these four individuals showed intelligence and courage that impressed him despite his anger. Perhaps humans were indeed more formidable than his advisors had suggested. The interrogation ended without providing the Emperor with the answers he sought, but it left him with a growing sense that he had made a serious miscalculation. The children returned to their quarters knowing that their situation had become even more dangerous, but also feeling proud that they had not revealed anything that might help their captor. They could only hope that their guardians would find them before Valdris decided that they were too risky to keep alive. Captain Taehyun stood in the shadows of Centaura Prime's lower city levels, studying the massive palace that rose like a crystal mountain into the alien sky above him. 3 months of careful planning and coordinated strikes across Valdris's empire had brought him and his team to this moment, when they would attempt the most dangerous rescue mission in human history. The four Guardians were outnumbered by millions of hostile aliens on a world that was the heart of galactic power, but they were not deterred by these odds. Dr. Somin had spent weeks analyzing the psychological profiles of palace staff and security personnel, identifying individuals who might be susceptible to manipulation or bribery. Her research revealed that many aliens were growing increasingly uncomfortable with Emperor Valdris's paranoid behavior and aggressive policies. The Empire's unity was fracturing as fear and suspicion replaced the loyalty that had once bound different species together. Engineer Kyung-ho had used his network of human operatives to place surveillance devices and sabotage equipment throughout the palace's infrastructure systems. His modifications to the alien technology were virtually undetectable, but would allow the team to disrupt communications power distribution and security networks at precisely the right moments. The palace's own advanced systems would become weapons turned against their creators. Pilot Nari had positioned their modified ship in orbit around Centaura Prime, using stolen identification codes and false flight plans provided by undercover human agents. The vessel appeared to be a routine cargo transport, but it was actually loaded with military-grade weapons and equipment that would be needed for their escape. She maintained constant communication with the ground team while monitoring alien fleet movements throughout the system. The children had been monitoring palace routine and security patterns for months, while pretending to be compliant prisoners focused only on their education and training. Minho had memorized guard schedules and identified the optimal times for each phase of the rescue operation. Jinwoo had learned to access and manipulate the alien computer systems that controlled various palace functions. Yuna had cultivated relationships with sympathetic staff members who could provide assistance or distractions when needed. Hana had created detailed mental maps of every corridor, room, and passage that might be relevant to their escape. The rescue operation began at midnight local time, when engineer Kyung-ho activated devices that caused seemingly random malfunctions throughout the palace's security network. Surveillance cameras developed interference patterns that created blind spots in critical areas, while motion sensors began reporting false alarms that drew guards away from their normal positions. The aliens attributed these problems to system aging and maintenance issues rather than sabotage. Captain Taehyun and Dr. Somin entered the palace through a service entrance that had been left unlocked by a human agent working in the maintenance department. They moved through the lower levels with confidence born from months of studying the building's layout and daily operations. Their route had been carefully planned to avoid areas with heavy security while taking advantage of the chaos created by the false alarms. The children received the signal to begin their part of the plan when the lights in their quarters flickered 3 times in rapid succession. Jinwoo used his access to the computer system to disable the locks on their doors, while Hana created a distraction by triggering a medical emergency alert that summoned doctor personnel away from the security station. Minho and Yuna led the group through corridors they had mapped during their months of captivity. Emperor Valdris was in his private command center, trying to coordinate responses to the latest reports of rebellion and sabotage throughout his empire when alarms began sounding throughout the palace. The massive alien ruler believed this was another coordinated attack by the mysterious human agents who had been tormenting his forces for months. He ordered all available guards to secure the perimeter, while he personally took command of the defensive effort. The confrontation between Captain Taehyun and Emperor Valdris occurred in the palace's central hall, where the two leaders faced each other across a space designed to showcase the Emperor's power and authority. The human guardian appeared calm and confident despite being surrounded by dozens of armed aliens, while Valdris towered above him, radiating fury and frustration at the audacity of this invasion. "You have made a serious mistake in taking those children," Captain Taehyun said in perfect Centauran as he studied the alien emperor with cold calculation. "Humanity does not abandon its own, and we will go to any lengths necessary to protect our young. Your empire is crumbling because you underestimated what humans are capable of when properly motivated." Emperor Valdris laughed bitterly as he gestured toward the armed guards surrounding the small human. "One man against my entire empire, and you speak of capability. Your species may be more clever than I initially believed, but you are still primitives who lack the technology and numbers to challenge my authority. I will keep the children and dispose of you as an example to others who might follow." The Emperor's confidence began to waver when Captain Taehyun smiled and activated a communication device that filled the hall with voices speaking from across the galaxy. Human agents reported from dozens of worlds throughout the Empire describing successful operations that had crippled military installations, disrupted supply lines, and turned alien populations against their rulers. The coordination and scope of these activities demonstrated capabilities that Valdris had never imagined. "Your empire exists because we allowed it to exist," Captain Taehyun explained as the reports continued. "Humanity has been watching and preparing for years while you built your forces and expanded your territory. We knew about the Devourer threat long before you captured our children, and we understand what needs to be done to prepare the galaxy for their return." This revelation shocked Emperor Valdris, who had believed that only his own intelligence services knew about the ancient enemy that threatened all life in the galaxy. The possibility that humans had been aware of the Devourers and had been making their own preparations suggested a level of foresight and capability that challenged everything he thought he knew about their species. Dr. Soman appeared with the 4 children who had successfully navigated the palace corridors using their months of observation and preparation. The sight of Minho, Jinwoo, Yuna, and Hana safe and unharmed filled Captain Taehyun with relief, but he maintained his focus on the confrontation with Valdris. The mission was not complete until they were safely away from the palace and beyond the reach of the Imperial fleet. The children surprised everyone by stepping forward to address Emperor Valdris, directly using the alien languages they had learned during their captivity. Yuna spoke first, explaining that they understood his fear of the Devourers and his desire to unite the galaxy, but that conquest and intimidation were not the answer. Minho added that cooperation and mutual respect would be more effective than force in building the kind of alliance needed to face an ancient enemy. Jinwoo demonstrated his mastery of alien technology by using a palace terminal to display tactical analyses that human agents had prepared regarding Devourer capabilities and potential defensive strategies. His presentation showed that the children had learned far more during their captivity than anyone had realized, and that they possessed insights that could be valuable for galactic defense planning. Hana concluded their presentation by offering Emperor Valdris a choice between continued conflict that would weaken everyone involved, or cooperation that could create the strong united front needed to resist the Devourer threat. Her young voice carried authority that seemed impossible for someone so small, but her words clearly had an impact on the alien ruler, who was facing the collapse of everything he had worked to achieve. The resolution came when Captain Taehyun revealed the final element of the human strategy that had been developing throughout the months of apparent chaos and rebellion. Humanity had not been trying to destroy Valdris's empire, but rather to transform it into something more effective and sustainable. The attacks and sabotage had been designed to eliminate corruption and weakness, while identifying leaders who could be trusted with the responsibility of galactic defense. Emperor Valdris found himself faced with a choice between destruction and cooperation as reports continued to arrive from across his territory. Many worlds were declaring independence, but they were also expressing willingness to join a new kind of alliance based on mutual benefit rather than conquest. The humans had orchestrated a transformation that preserved the unity needed to face the Devourer threat while eliminating the oppression that had made that unity unstable. The escape from Centaura Prime became unnecessary, as Emperor Valdris accepted the reality of his situation and agreed to work with humanity in restructuring galactic civilization. The 4 children became ambassadors, representing the best qualities of human adaptability and cooperation, while their guardians took positions as advisors helping to plan defensive strategies against the ancient enemy that threatened all life in the galaxy. The story concluded with the revelation that the Devourers had been watching and waiting for the galaxy to develop the unity and strength needed to resist their return.